Hello Chelsea fans. Welcome again to Chelsea HQ View for an amazing blog post about our beloved Chelsea FC. Chelsea's summer transfer plans, big moves coming your way. What if I told you that Chelsea are planning some of their most exciting transfer moves in years? What if these deals could change everything about how we play next season? Right now, while you're reading this, Chelsea are working on deals that could bring two amazing young players to Stamford Bridge. We're talking about Xavi Simons, the Dutch star who everyone wants, and Alejandro Garnacho, the Manchester United winger who's looking for a fresh start. But here's what makes these deals really interesting. Chelsea aren't just throwing money around like they used to. They're being smart about it. They're offering player swaps, using academy players as bargaining chips, and thinking long-term instead of just buying whoever is available. This isn't the old Chelsea way of doing business. This is something new, something smarter, and something that could work much better in today's football world. So what's really happening behind the scenes? Which players might join us and who might have to leave? And what does all this mean for our chances next season? Let's dive into everything that's going on and find out why this summer could be the most important one in years for Chelsea fans. The Xavi Simons deal. Why everyone wants this guy. Have you heard of Xavi Simons? If you haven't, you're about to learn about one of the most exciting young players in Europe right now. Simons is a 22-year-old midfielder who plays for RB Leipzig in Germany. But he's not just any midfielder. This guy is special. He's the kind of player who can change a game with one pass or one shot. In 76 games for Leipzig, he's scored 21 goals. That might not sound huge, but remember, he's not a striker. He's a playmaker. His job is to create chances for other players and score when he gets the chance. The Dutch national team thinks he's pretty good too. At just 22, he's already played 28 times for his country. That tells you everything you need to know about how good he is. Why does Chelsea want him? Here's the thing about Chelsea last season. We had lots of possession. We looked good when we had the ball. But when teams sat back and defended deep, we struggled to create clear chances. We needed someone who could unlock those tight defenses with a clever pass or a moment of magic. Someone who could score from outside the box when defenders were just standing around waiting for us to make a mistake. Simons could be exactly what we need. He's the kind of player who makes things happen. He sees passes that other players don't see. He can shoot from distance. He can dribble past players when space is tight. Enzo Maresca, our manager, really wants to sign him. Maresca knows that in modern football, creativity is everything. You can have all the energy and work rate in the world, but if you can't create chances, you won't score goals. But there's a problem: the price tag. Leipzig wants £60 million for Simons. That's a lot of money even for Chelsea. Especially when we've already spent over £200 million this summer. So how do we make this deal happen? This is where Chelsea are being really smart about things. Instead of just offering cash, we're offering players. Two players actually. Christopher Nkunku and Tariq George. Let me explain why this makes sense for everyone involved. The Christopher Nkunku situation. Remember when we signed Nkunku from Leipzig last year? We paid £52 million for him. He was supposed to be our new star player. The guy who would score goals and create chances. But it hasn't worked out that way, has it? Nkunku was amazing at Leipzig. He was the best player in the German league. He scored more goals than anyone else. But sometimes when players change clubs, things just don't click. It's not necessarily anyone's fault. Sometimes the style of play is different. Sometimes the pressure is different. Sometimes a player just needs to be in the right place at the right time. For Nkunku, Chelsea might not be the right place. But Leipzig? That could be perfect for him again. Think about it from Leipzig's point of view. They know Nkunku can play well in their system because he already did it before. They know he can score goals in the German league. They know he fits their style of play. From Chelsea's point of view, using Nkunku to get Simons makes sense too. We get a player who fits our needs better. A player who our manager really wants. A player who could make a bigger difference to our team. From Nkunku's point of view, going back to Leipzig could be the best thing for his career. He could get his confidence back. He could start scoring goals again. He could be happy playing football instead of struggling to fit in. Sometimes in football, the best deals are the ones where everyone wins. The young talent, Tariq George. But Nkunku isn't the only player Chelsea might use in this deal. There's also Tariq George. Who is Tariq George? He's a 19-year-old winger who's been at Chelsea since he was 8 years old. That's 11 years of training and development in our academy system. George made his first team debut last season, which is a big achievement. He was even on the bench when we won the Conference League final. For a teenager, that's huge experience. But here's the reality. Getting regular playing time at Chelsea is incredibly difficult. We spend millions and millions on established stars. That makes it very hard for young players to break through into the first team. George knows this. That's why he's open to exploring other options this summer. He wants to play regular football, and he knows that might not happen at Chelsea right away. From Leipzig's point of view, George is exactly the type of player they love to work with. The German club has built their reputation on taking young, talented players and helping them become stars. Look at their track record. They've helped develop so many players who went on to become world-class. George could be their next success story. For Chelsea, including George in the Simons deal makes financial sense too. When you sell an academy player, all the money counts as profit in the books. That helps with financial fair play rules, which are becoming more and more important. But here's a question for you. Do you think it's right for Chelsea to sell our academy players to buy other players? Should we be giving these young players more chances at Stamford Bridge instead? It's not an easy question to answer. Some fans think we should always give our own players a chance first. Others think that if selling an academy player helps us sign someone like Simons, it's worth doing. What do you think? How this three-way deal could work? So here's how the Simons deal could work. Chelsea send Nkunku and George to Leipzig. Leipzig send Simons to Chelsea. Chelsea probably pay some cash on top, but much less than the full £60 million that Leipzig originally wanted. Everyone gets what they want. Leipzig get back a proven goalscorer in Nkunku and a young talent in George. Chelsea get the creative midfielder they really need. Nkunku gets to return to a place where he was successful. George gets a chance to play regular football and develop his career. It's the kind of deal that makes sense for everyone involved. But will it actually happen? That's the big question. These kinds of complicated deals can fall apart at any moment. Maybe Leipzig decide they don't actually want Nkunku back. Maybe George decides he wants to try somewhere else. Maybe Chelsea change their mind about Simons. But if it does happen, it could be one of the smartest deals Chelsea have ever made. The Alejandro Garnacho story, a fresh start at Stamford Bridge. While we're working on the Simons deal, another exciting opportunity has come up. Alejandro Garnacho, the talented winger from Manchester United, could be heading to Chelsea. This story has all the ingredients of a really interesting transfer. A young player with lots of potential. A situation at his current club that isn't working out. And a rival club ready to give him exactly what he needs. What's gone wrong at Manchester United? Garnacho looked like he was going to be a star at Manchester United. The 21-year-old Argentine winger has pace, skill, and the kind of direct running that gets fans excited. But then Ruben Amorim became the manager and things changed. It's not that Garnacho became a bad player overnight. Sometimes new managers just have different ideas about how they want their team to play. Sometimes players who were perfect for one system don't fit into another system. Amorim has been pretty honest about the situation. He said that while Garnacho is talented, sometimes things just don't work out. The manager feels that Garnacho wants something different, maybe a new challenge or a different style of leadership. Actually, it's quite refreshing to hear a manager be so honest about these things. Instead of trying to force a player into a system where he doesn't fit, Amorim is acknowledging that it might be better for everyone if Garnacho moves on. That kind of honesty is rare in football, but it's probably the best approach for both the player and the club. Why Chelsea makes perfect sense. From Garnacho's point of view, Chelsea could offer everything he's looking for right now. A fresh start with a new manager who wants to use him. A club that's building something exciting for the future. A chance to prove himself at the highest level again. Chelsea have already agreed personal terms with Garnacho, which shows that he's interested in making the move. When a player agrees personal terms, it usually means he really wants to join that club. But agreeing terms with the player is often the easy part of a transfer. The hard part is getting the two clubs to agree on a price. Manchester United want around £40 million for Garnacho. That might seem like a lot for a player who's not getting regular game time right now, but you have to remember a few things. First, he's only 21 years old. Players that young have lots of potential to improve and become much better. Second, he has nearly 3 years left on his contract at United. That gives United a strong position in any negotiations. For Chelsea, £40 million might actually be reasonable for a player like Garnacho. Young, fast wingers don't come cheap in today's transfer market. Look at what other clubs are paying for similar players. Plus, if Enzo Maresca can get the best out of Garnacho, he could end up being worth much more than £40 million in a few years. Reading the social media clues. Garnacho himself seems to be hinting that a move could happen soon. He posted a picture on social media showing him in a gym with his head in his hands, along with some interesting emojis. Now you might think that social media posts don't mean much. Players post random stuff all the time, right? But in the transfer world, these little hints often mean more than you might think. Players know that fans and journalists analyze everything they post. They know that a simple emoji can start rumors and speculation. The emojis Garnacho used were particularly interesting. A sand timer and ellipses. The sand timer suggests that time is running out, or that something is about to happen. The ellipses suggest to be continued. Put those together and it feels like Garnacho is telling his followers that news is coming soon. That something is about to change in his career. Of course, we could be reading too much into a simple social media post. Maybe he was just feeling frustrated after a workout and decided to post about it. But given everything else we know about his situation at Manchester United and Chelsea's interest, it seems like more than just coincidence. What Garnacho would bring to Chelsea. If Garnacho does join Chelsea, what would he bring to the team? First and most obviously, pace. The Argentine is genuinely fast, and that pace would give us another option for counterattacks and quick transitions from defense to attack. Modern football is all about those quick transitions. The teams that can switch from defending to attacking in just a few seconds often create the best chances. Garnacho's pace would be perfect for these situations. He's also a direct runner. When he gets the ball, he looks to take on defenders and make things happen. That directness would be a nice contrast to some of our other attacking players who maybe like to pass the ball around more. Sometimes you need a player who's willing to run straight at defenders and create chaos in the penalty area. Garnacho is exactly that type of player. He's versatile too. He can play on either wing, which would give Maresca lots of options for how to set up the team. Versatility is always valuable, especially when you're playing lots of games in different competitions. And don't forget, he's still only 21. If he joins Chelsea now, he could potentially be a key player for the next 10 years. That's the kind of long-term thinking that leads to sustained success. Chelsea's new transfer strategy: youth over experience. Looking at both the Simons and Garnacho situations, you can see a clear pattern in how Chelsea are approaching transfers now. We're not just throwing money at big-name players like we used to. There's a strategy here, and it's all about thinking long-term instead of looking for quick fixes. Why young players make sense. Both Simons and Garnacho are young players with their best years ahead of them. Simons is 22, Garnacho is 21. These aren't 28 or 29-year-old players who might give you 2 or 3 good seasons before declining. This approach makes sense for several reasons. First, younger players have more potential to improve. When you sign a 29-year-old, you pretty much know what you're getting. They are what they are. But when you sign a 21-year-old, they could become much, much better over the next few years. Second, younger players tend to adapt better to new situations. Moving to a new club, a new country, a new style of play, these things are easier when you're young and flexible. Third, from a financial point of view, younger players are usually better investments. Their value can increase over time. If Simons or Garnacho become world-class players, Chelsea could either build the team around them or sell them for huge profits down the line. Learning from past mistakes. This new approach suggests that Chelsea have learned from some past mistakes. In previous years, we often signed established stars who were already at their peak or even past it. These players commanded huge wages, expected to be guaranteed starters, and sometimes caused problems in the dressing room when things didn't go their way. Don't get me wrong, some of those signings worked out brilliantly. But others didn't, and they were expensive mistakes. The focus on young, hungry players reduces these risks. Young players are usually just happy to be at a big club. They're willing to work hard, learn new things, and fight for their place in the team. They also tend to be less set in their ways. If the manager wants them to play a certain role or learn a new position, they're usually more willing to adapt. Creative financial solutions. The player swap ideas also show that Chelsea are being more creative about how they structure deals. With financial fair play rules becoming stricter every year, clubs can't just spend unlimited amounts of cash anymore. They need to be smarter about how they build their squads. Using players like Nkunku and George in deals makes sense for several reasons. It reduces the amount of cash we need to spend. It helps with FFP calculations. And it gives other clubs players they actually want, not just money. This kind of thinking shows that Chelsea's recruitment team is evolving. We're not just rich owners throwing money around anymore. We're becoming a more sophisticated, strategic operation. And that's probably a good thing for the long-term health of the club. Building for Maresca's vision. Both Simons and Garnacho would fit perfectly into what Enzo Maresca wants to do at Chelsea. Maresca likes his teams to press high up the pitch, move the ball quickly, and create chances through clever passing and fast transitions from defense to attack. Simons' creativity and passing ability would be perfect for unlocking teams that sit deep and defend with lots of players behind the ball. When we dominate possession but can't find a way through, Simons could be the guy who picks that killer pass or scores from outside the box. Garnacho's pace and directness would give us another option for those fast transitions. When we win the ball back and want to counterattack quickly, having a player like Garnacho who can run at defenders would be invaluable. This alignment between what the manager wants and what the club is trying to sign is really important. Too often in the past, clubs have signed good players who didn't fit their manager's system, and then everyone wondered why things didn't work out. It looks like Chelsea are being much more strategic about making sure new signings fit the overall plan. The money side of things, how do we afford all this? Let's talk about money for a minute, because that's always an important part of any transfer discussion. Chelsea have already spent over £200 million this summer. So how can we afford to sign players like Simons and Garnacho as well? Player sales are the key. The simple answer is that we need to sell players to fund new arrivals. That's how modern football works, especially with financial fair play rules. The article mentions that Nicholas Jackson has been put up for sale. Jackson was linked with Manchester United before they signed Benjamin Sesko for £74 million. Newcastle are also interested in our striker. If Chelsea can get a good price for Jackson, it would help fund moves for Simons and Garnacho. But this raises an interesting question. Should we be selling Jackson? The Senegalese striker had a decent first season at Chelsea. He scored goals, worked hard and showed some promising signs. Is it wise to sell him just to fund other signings? That's the kind of difficult decision that clubs have to make in the modern transfer market. Sometimes you have to sell good players to buy better ones. It's not always popular with fans, but it might be necessary to improve the overall quality of the squad. What do you think? Should we keep Jackson, or is it worth selling him if it helps us sign players like Simons and Garnacho? The academy value. Another important part of Chelsea's financial strategy is our academy system. Players like Tariq George might not be household names, but they represent significant value on the club's books for financial fair play purposes. When you develop a player through your academy system, their entire transfer value counts as profit. So if Chelsea sell George for £10 million, that's £10 million of pure profit that can be used to fund other signings. This is why so many big clubs are investing heavily in their academies nowadays. It's not just about developing players for the first team. It's also about creating financial flexibility in the transfer market. Chelsea's academy has always been one of the best in England. Now it's becoming an important part of our transfer strategy as well. Long-term financial thinking. Chelsea's approach also makes sense from a long-term financial perspective. When you sign young players like Simons and Garnacho, those players could become more valuable over time. If they develop well and become key players, their market value could increase significantly. Think about it this way, if you sign a 29-year-old for £60 million, you might get 3 good years out of him, and then his value drops to almost nothing. But if you sign a 22-year-old for the same money, he could give you 8 to 10 years, and might be worth even more when he hits his peak. It's a bit like investing money. You can choose safe options that give you steady returns, or you can choose growth options that might be worth much more in the future. Chelsea seem to be choosing the growth approach, and that could pay off really well in the long run. What these signings would mean for next season. So far we've talked a lot about individual players and transfer strategies. But what would these signings actually mean for Chelsea's chances next season? Solving our creativity problem. One of our biggest issues last season was creating clear chances against teams that defended deep with lots of players behind the ball. We had plenty of possession and looked comfortable when we had the ball, but we often struggled to find that final pass or moment of magic that opens up tight games. Simons could be the solution to this problem. His ability to pick a pass that others don't see, to drive forward with the ball when space is tight, and to score from distance would give Chelsea a new dimension in attack. Suddenly, teams couldn't just sit back and defend, because Simons might punish them with a moment of brilliance from outside the box. Adding pace and directness. Garnacho would bring something different but equally valuable to the team. His pace and direct running would give Chelsea more options on counterattacks and in transition situations. When we win the ball back and want to attack quickly, having someone like Garnacho who can run at defenders would be perfect. Modern football is increasingly about these quick transitions from defense to attack. The teams that can switch from one phase to the other in just a few seconds often create the best chances. Squad depth for multiple competitions. Both signings would also improve our squad depth, which is crucial when you're competing in multiple competitions throughout the season. Last season we sometimes struggled when key players got injured or needed rest. The squad wasn't quite deep enough to maintain consistent performance across all competitions. With Simons and Garnacho in the squad, Maresca would have many more options for rotating his team and keeping players fresh throughout a long season. Competition for places would be fierce, which usually brings out the best in everyone. Players know they can't take their place in the team for granted, so they work harder and perform better. European competition. Chelsea will be back in European competition this season, and these signings would definitely help our chances of making a deep run in whatever competition we're in. European football requires a different kind of quality and mentality. You're playing against teams that might not be as good as Premier League sides, but they're usually very organized and difficult to break down. Having players like Simons who can create something from nothing, and players like Garnacho who can stretch the game with their pace, would be invaluable in these situations. Both players have European experience as well. Simons has played in the Champions League with Leipzig, while Garnacho has played in Europe with Manchester United. They know what it takes to perform on the biggest stage. The competition factor. Keeping up with our rivals. Of course, Chelsea aren't the only club trying to improve their squad this summer. Our Premier League rivals have been busy as well, which makes every signing more important. What other clubs are doing? Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool have all been active in the transfer market. If we want to compete with these clubs for trophies, we need to match their ambition and quality of signings. Arsenal have strengthened their squad with some smart signings. Liverpool have brought in new players to refresh their team. Manchester City continue to add quality players to an already strong squad. In this context, signing players like Simons and Garnacho would send a clear message to the rest of the league that Chelsea are serious about challenging for major trophies. It would also help attract other top players in the future. Players want to join clubs with clear ambitions and a plan for success. The psychological impact. Sometimes signings matter as much for what they represent as for what they bring on the pitch. When a club signs exciting young talent, it creates optimism among fans and confidence in the dressing room. It shows that the club is thinking about the future and has ambitions to win trophies. Players want to be part of something special. If Chelsea can convince players like Simons and Garnacho to join, it shows other potential targets that we're building something worth being part of. That kind of momentum can be really important in football. Success breeds success, and players want to join successful projects. Potential challenges. It won't be easy. Of course, no transfer is guaranteed to work out perfectly. There are always risks and challenges to consider, and these potential signings would be no different. Time to adapt. Young players moving to new clubs, especially in a different country or league, often need time to settle in and adapt. The Premier League is different from other leagues around Europe. The pace is different, the physicality is different, and the pressure is definitely different. If these signings happen, Chelsea fans should be patient. Don't expect Simons or Garnacho to be instant superstars who transform the team overnight. Give them time to learn the system, develop chemistry with their new teammates, and get used to English football. The best signings are often the ones that take a few months to really get going. Competition for places. Both players would be arriving at a club with serious competition for places in the team. Simons would need to compete with other attacking midfielders and creative players for game time. Garnacho would be fighting for a place in what could become quite a crowded forward line. This competition could bring out the best in everyone and push all the players to higher levels. But it could also lead to frustration if players don't get as many minutes as they expect. Managing these situations is one of the biggest challenges for any manager. Keeping everyone happy when you can only start 11 players is never easy. Handling the pressure. Playing for Chelsea comes with enormous pressure and expectations that not every player can handle. Our fans demand excellence and expect the team to compete for trophies every season. The media scrutiny is intense, especially in London. Social media means every mistake is analyzed and criticized by thousands of people. Not every young player can handle this pressure. The players who succeed at big clubs are often those who thrive under pressure rather than struggle with it. Both Simons and Garnacho would need to show mental strength as well as technical ability. They'd need to be confident enough to take risks and make things happen, even when the pressure is on. The players who might leave. While much of the focus is on potential new arrivals, it's worth thinking about the players who might be leaving Chelsea as part of these deals. Christopher Nkunku's fresh start. If Nkunku does return to Leipzig as part of the Simons deal, it could be exactly what his career needs right now. Sometimes a change of scenery is the best thing for a player who's struggling to find their form. Nkunku was genuinely world-class at Leipzig before his Chelsea move, scoring goals and creating chances on a regular basis. If he can recapture that form in familiar surroundings, everyone wins. Leipzig get back a proven goal scorer who they know can perform in their system. Nkunku gets his confidence back and starts enjoying football again. and Chelsea get a player they really need in Simons. It would also show other players around the world that Chelsea are willing to be flexible and help find solutions when things don't work out. That kind of reputation can actually help attract players in the future. Sometimes the best transfers are the ones where everyone involved ends up in a better situation. Tariq George's development journey. For George, a move to Leipzig could be perfect for his development as a young player. The German club has an excellent track record of improving young players and giving them opportunities to grow. They're not afraid to give chances to players who are still learning their trade. Sometimes the kindest thing a big club can do for a young player is help them find regular game time elsewhere. George has spent 11 years at Chelsea, but if he's not going to get chances in the first team right now, a move makes sense for his career. If George develops well at Leipzig, Chelsea might even include a buyback clause or sell-on percentage in the deal. That way we could benefit if he becomes a top player in the future. It's not uncommon for clubs to maintain connections with players they've developed, even after selling them. What Maresca brings to all this. Throughout all this transfer speculation, it's important to remember that Enzo Maresca is the man who will ultimately decide how these players fit into his system. His track record with young players. Maresca has good experience working with young, talented players who are still developing their games. At Leicester City, he showed that he can help players improve and implement an attractive style of football that gets the best out of creative players. Chelsea fans should be optimistic about his ability to get the best out of new signings, especially young ones who are eager to learn and improve. Clear philosophy. The Italian manager also has a clear philosophy about how he wants his teams to play. This clarity is really important when signing new players, because it means everyone knows what's expected of them. Players like Simons and Garnacho would know exactly what role they're expected to play in the team. That makes it easier for them to adapt quickly and start making an impact. Building team chemistry. One of Maresca's biggest challenges will be building chemistry between all his players, especially if several new faces arrive before the season starts. Football is a team sport, and individual talent only matters if it can be combined effectively with the rest of the team. The good news is that both Simons and Garnacho seem like intelligent players who understand how to play for the team as well as themselves. They're not selfish players who ignore their teammates. Managing expectations. Maresca will also need to manage expectations around any new signings, both from the media and from Chelsea fans. Everyone will want to see instant results, but building a successful team takes time. The manager's communication skills will be crucial in explaining his vision and helping people understand that success might not come immediately. But if he can get this right, the rewards could be huge for both the players and the club. Looking forward, the bigger picture for Chelsea. These potential signings are about much more than just the upcoming season. They're part of Chelsea's long-term strategy to build a sustainable, successful football club for the future. A new model for success. Under our current ownership, Chelsea seem to be moving away from the old approach of signing established superstars for huge fees and wages. Instead, we're focusing on young talent with high potential who can grow and develop together over several years. This approach requires more patience from everyone involved, but it could lead to better long-term success. Instead of constantly rebuilding the squad every few years, Chelsea could develop a core group of players who understand each other and get better together. Financial sustainability. The focus on young players also makes sense from a financial perspective, especially as financial fair play rules become stricter and more heavily enforced. Clubs need to be smarter about how they spend money. Developing young talent and selling academy products creates a sustainable model that can fund future signings while staying within the rules. Chelsea's academy has always been one of our biggest assets. Now it's becoming an even more important part of our overall strategy. Global appeal and commercial growth. Signing exciting young players from different countries also helps Chelsea's appeal around the world. Simons would strengthen our connection to Dutch fans and the broader European market. Garnacho would bring links to Argentina and the South American football community. In modern football, commercial considerations are just as important as what happens on the pitch. These signings could help Chelsea grow our fan base and commercial revenue in different parts of the world. That additional revenue can then be invested back into the squad and the club's facilities, creating a positive cycle of growth and success. Questions every Chelsea fan should consider. As we wait to see how these potential deals develop over the coming weeks, there are several questions worth thinking about. Should Chelsea prioritize signing young players with potential over experienced players who might have more immediate impact? Are player swap deals a good idea, or would you prefer the club to just pay cash for the players they want? How patient should fans be with young signings who might need several months to adapt to the Premier League and our style of play? Is it worth selling academy products like Tariq George to fund deals for more established players like Simons? What would you consider a successful first season for Chelsea if these signings happen? Do you think this new approach to transfers is better than the old way of signing big-name stars? These aren't easy questions to answer, and different fans will probably have different opinions. But they're worth thinking about as we watch the final weeks of the transfer window unfold. The final weeks, what to expect. As we enter the final stretch of the transfer window, things are likely to move very quickly. Deals that have been discussed for months might suddenly happen in a matter of days, or they might fall apart at the last minute for unexpected reasons. The Simons deal seems to depend largely on whether Leipzig are genuinely interested in taking Nkunku back and whether they rate George highly enough to include him in the deal. If Leipzig are keen on both players, a complicated three-way arrangement could work out perfectly for everyone involved. If they're not interested in one or both players, Chelsea might need to come up with a different approach or just pay more cash. The Garnacho situation might be more straightforward, assuming Chelsea and Manchester United can agree on a fair price for the player. Personal terms are apparently already sorted, which removes one potential obstacle. The main question now is whether United will accept what Chelsea are willing to pay, or whether they'll hold out for a higher fee. For Chelsea fans, these are exciting times. The prospect of adding two talented young players to the squad is genuinely thrilling, especially when you consider how well they could fit into Maresca's system. But as any football fan knows, transfer speculation and reality don't always match up perfectly. Deals that seem certain can fall apart overnight because of unexpected complications. Others that seem impossible can suddenly happen when clubs find creative solutions. The only thing we can do is wait and see what happens over the next few weeks. Final thoughts: a summer of real promise. As we've seen throughout this detailed look at Chelsea's transfer plans, this summer could be genuinely transformative for our club in ways that go far beyond just adding new players to the squad. The potential additions of Xavi Simons and Alejandro Garnacho represent much more than just new faces in the team. They represent a new way of thinking about how to build a successful football club in the modern era. The club seems to have learned important lessons from past experiences and is now focusing on building for the future rather than looking for quick fixes that might not work long-term. The emphasis on young, talented players with plenty of room to grow is exactly the kind of strategic thinking that leads to sustained success over many years rather than just short-term improvements. Of course, there are no guarantees in football. These deals might not happen for various reasons, or the players might take longer to adapt than we hope. But the ambition and clear strategy behind these moves should give every Chelsea fan genuine reasons for optimism about what lies ahead. The use of player swaps and academy products to help fund deals shows a more sophisticated and creative approach to the transfer market that could serve us well in future windows too. Rather than just trying to outspend every other club, Chelsea are being smart and strategic about how we build our squad within the constraints of modern football finance. Perhaps most importantly, these potential signings seem to fit perfectly with what Enzo Maresca wants to achieve at Stamford Bridge. They're not random acquisitions based on availability or reputation. They're targeted moves designed to solve specific problems and improve the team in specific areas. For Simons, it's all about adding the creativity and technical quality that can unlock tight games when opponents sit deep and defend with lots of players. For Garnacho, it's about providing pace and directness that can exploit space during those crucial transition moments when we win the ball back. Both players would make Chelsea more dangerous and less predictable in attack. Teams wouldn't be able to prepare for us in the same way because we'd have multiple different ways to hurt them. The fact that both players are so young also means Chelsea would be getting them at the very beginning of their careers rather than when they're already approaching their peak years. If everything works out as planned, Simons and Garnacho could be key players for the club for many years to come. That's the kind of long-term thinking that builds truly successful football clubs. Not just teams that win for 1 or 2 seasons, but clubs that can compete at the highest level year after year. As the transfer window enters its final phase, Chelsea fans have plenty to be excited about and look forward to. Whether these specific deals happen or not, the club's new approach and clear ambition suggest that good things are on the horizon. The chess match of summer transfers continues, and Chelsea seem to be making all the right moves so far. The strategy is clear, the targets make sense, and the method of getting deals done shows real intelligence and creativity.